Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror mystery films from 2021, titled What Josiah Saw. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with Tommy Graham, an intellectually disabled man who lives with his father, Josiah Graham, in an isolated farmhouse in Texas. Josiah is an alcoholic and an atheist, while Tommy seems to be a devout believer, who often prays for his parents and his estranged siblings Eli and Mary. One night, Tommy struggles to sleep, so he gets up and peeks out of the window. But there is nothing outside, except an old willow tree with an inscription that says, "Miriam Graham, darling wife, and beloved mom." The movie then takes us to the first chapter titled Ghost of Willow Road, in which we see two oil company executives meeting a town official. It turns out the oil company aims to expand its business by acquiring land in the town's outskirts, and for that, they need to acquire Graham's property as well. Money is no issue for them, and they're willing to offer substantial compensation. However, the town official reveals a tragic backstory of that family, and recounts how Josiah's wife, Miriam, was a saintly woman. She never missed a day of church, and always brought her twins, and the youngest boy, Tommy, with her. But one Sunday, she surprisingly missed church, and Tommy, who was very close to his mom, soon discovered her hanging from an old willow tree near the house. Since then, people claim the house is haunted, and her ghost still roams the grounds. The town official says persuading people to demolish the house is a difficult task, so he will need a hefty sum as his commission. Elsewhere, the father and son arrive at a local market to buy liquor, when Tommy spots a kid named Tanner with his mother. Josiah warns him to stay away from them, but Tommy insists that Tanner is his friend. He then enters the store, where he approaches Tanner and attempts to speak with him. But soon, the boy's mother appears, compelling Tommy to leave quickly. That afternoon, Tommy finds his dad drunk in the living room, and the old man asks why he looks out his window at night. Tommy thinks he might see his late mother, as the townspeople claim she wanders around the house. But Josiah insists it's not true, and when Tommy continues to cling to his belief, the old man furiously ends up slapping his son. That night, Josiah is seen sleeping peacefully in his bed, right when this happens. The next morning, Tommy notices his dad standing by the tree where his mother had hung herself. Josiah tells him that last night something happened, and he finally acknowledged the existence of God. He claims that Miriam is suffering in Hellfire, as she visited him last night, and told him she wanders around the house, and watches over Tommy. He states that they need to mend their ways and cleanse themselves, and only then can they help his mother. Tommy also believes his dad, and later, the father and son are seen praying together. The scene cuts to nighttime, where a sudden gust of wind wakes up Josiah, and he once again gasps in shock. He then approaches Tommy, and says that Miriam wasn't alone, an angel was with her, who has given them chores to do. The next day, Tommy proceeds to renovate the house, build a new staircase, clean up the place, and polish the wood. Josiah has also completely changed, and he has now stopped drinking, which surprises his son. And then, at one point, Josiah finds an adult magazine under Tommy's bed, and confronts him about it. Tommy claims it belonged to Eli, but his dad doesn't believe him. As a punishment, Josiah asks his son to look at the pictures and pleasure himself, so he can release it all, and atone for his sins. This makes the poor guy extremely uncomfortable, but when his father continues to force him, Tommy has no choice but to comply. After he's done, Josiah tells his son that God has something else that needs to be done, but he will wait until dark to reveal it. The scene then cuts to Eli, who is seen being intimate with a woman in a trailer. Once they're done, she gives him a small pouch of drugs, after which we move on to the second chapter of the movie, titled Eli and the Gypsies. Later, Eli is relaxing outside the trailer when an officer arrives, and explains that a 9-year-old girl went missing last week, before showing him a picture. The officer strongly suspects Eli, and threatens that if he makes even the smallest mistake, he will put him in jail. He even mentions that he spoke to Eli's boss, and informed him about how Eli molested a child years ago. But Eli defends himself, saying the girl was 16, but she didn't look her age, and their relationship was consensual. Despite this, he served 5 years in prison for it, and is trying to move on from that. However, the officer remains suspicious of him, and warns that he is keeping a close eye on his moves. That night, Eli arrives at an underground gambling den, where he meets a dangerous man named Boone, who even has the sheriff under his thumb. It turns out Eli owes Boone a hefty sum of money, so he hands over everything he has, which is clearly not enough. In desperation, Eli offers the drugs the woman gave him that morning, but Boone refuses, and threatens to kill him. Next, Boone tells him about a group of gypsies who are staying in town, and it is rumored that they possess a hoard of gold. It turns out this isn't ordinary gold, but gold said to have been taken from the teeth of Jews murdered by the Nazis during World War II. Boone then instructs Eli to go there, confirm whether the rumor is true, and steal the gold. He promises that if Eli succeeds, he will erase the debt, and even scrub his record clean, since he has allies in powerful positions. But if Eli fails, Boone threatens that it will mark the end of his life. Realizing that he has no other option, Eli agrees, and heads to the location with 2 of Boone's men. The 2 men say they will go after the gold, while Eli's job is to sit and drink with the gypsies to distract them. Moments later, they enter a party, where they meet a gypsy man named Marco. Boone's 2 men head to another room with Marco under the pretense of business, while Eli enjoys the party, and begins watching the gypsy dances. Shortly after, Eli is approached by a woman named Gina, who seems visibly attracted to him. After a few casual conversations, she asks if he has ever visited a medium, and if he would like to. Eli appears uninterested, but to avoid arousing suspicion, he finally agrees. The scene then cuts to Eli sitting at a table with a woman named Mama Luna, who is the medium. She holds his hand, and uncovers aspects of his personality, and a tormented past, which Gina translates. Then, Mama Luna shockingly tells Eli that he is destined to die soon, but he shrugs it off. Gina brews tea for Eli, and asks him to drink, to which he reluctantly complies. Afterwards, Mama Luna examines the cup carefully, and suddenly reveals that he is the cause of his mother's suffering. She then erupts into screams as visions of Eli's life overwhelm her, leaving her shaken. She also reveals that she knows Eli came to steal their gold, which sends Gina into a state of panic. Next, Gina rushes to inform this to Marco, which sparks a huge fight among the men, while Eli remains in a dazed state from the drug tea. He then glances up and sees a small child who turns out to be the same girl the police have been searching for. Suddenly, someone slams Eli's head against a table, during which he is flooded with visions of his past and sees 2 teenagers taking a baby somewhere. Shortly after, Eli wakes up groggy and notices that the gypsy gang has killed Boone's 2 henchmen. Marco is sitting beside the box of gold, and informs Eli that his own boss has ordered him to be killed. Eli says he doesn't care what they do to him, but pleads with them to release the little girl the police have been searching for. Marco refuses, saying Gina cannot have children, so she needs this girl. Afterwards, Marco leaves a big man to watch over Eli, before attending to other matters. The man appears to be a junkie, so Eli gives him the drugs the woman had given him that morning. The big guy eagerly snorts a large dose, but the drugs prove far too strong. He gasps for breath as if his chest is in pain, before collapsing directly on top of Eli. Following this, Eli takes a small dose of the drug to wake him up, then picks up the box of gold and starts to leave. But he soon remembers the little girl, so he rushes back and knocks on Marco's office door. Marco opens it, and Eli lands a fierce punch to his face, sending him sprawling to the floor. He finds the little girl with Mama Luna, so he escapes with the child and the gold, while the medium doesn't intervene. Once outside, Gina notices that Eli has taken the girl and begins to panic, after which a horde of gypsies starts chasing them. Fortunately, Eli and the child manage to drive away to escape their pursuers. Upon returning to Boone, Eli hands him the box of gold, and Boone honors his promise to help him get a fresh start. He even offers Eli a large piece of gold, but Eli refuses, saying that having his record cleared as promised is enough. Next, Eli leaves the girl in Boone's care and tries to leave, but then, Boone suffers a heart attack and dies, implying that the gold was cursed by the gypsies. The girl tries to touch the gold, but Eli stops her and pulls her away. He then drops her to the local police station, after which he returns to his trailer. There, Eli finds a letter from someone that leaves him completely stunned. The scene then cuts to the third chapter of the movie, titled Mary May I, where we see Eli's twin sister, Mary, and her husband, Ross, at an adoption agency. It turns out that Mary had a sterilization procedure 20 years ago, and can no longer conceive, so they're trying to adopt a baby. We also learn that the couple nearly separated 6 years ago, but they ultimately overcame their struggles and reconciled. The agent appears worried about Mary's mental well-being, and recommends that she consult a psychologist for an evaluation before moving forward. That night, the couple is seen having dinner with some friends, during which one of the guests comments that Mary and Ross would make lovely parents. Strangely, this offends Mary, who asks how the guest could possibly know what kind of parents they would be since she just met them. The atmosphere becomes tense, so the woman eventually apologizes, and the conversation moves on. After everyone leaves, an enraged Ross confronts his wife, and urges her to take her medication to keep her mental health stable. He admits that he's constantly frustrated with her, but never says anything, because he fears she might try to kill herself. Here, Mary realizes she embarrassed him earlier, and apologizes for her actions. Later that night, we see a disturbing sight of Mary stabbing herself, but it turns out to be a nightmare, and her husband rushes to comfort her. The next day, Mary attends her psychological evaluation, where she cries, and explains that she wants a baby because she has so much love to give. Later, she returns home, and is stunned to find Eli waiting for her. Mary tells him he has no right to show up like this, but he asks her to listen first. Eli then shows her the letter from the oil company, but she reveals she already knows about it. He tries to convince her to sign the papers, explaining that selling the land would give each of them a life-changing amount of money. Mary isn't sure, so Eli brings up a childhood game they used to play called Mary May I, where Mary had to do anything he asked without hesitation. Upon hearing this, Mary is flooded with haunting memories from her past, and says she wants to return to their old home. They know that Tommy won't agree easily, so they decide to visit him together and try to persuade him. Mary also expresses concern about their father, but Eli assures her that he'll handle him. Following this, the siblings make their way toward their old home, and stop at a motel on the way. Later, they finally arrive at their destination, and notice how much the place has changed. When Tommy steps outside, Mary is excited to see him after so long and hugs him tightly. Tommy then spots Eli as well, and suddenly bursts into tears as he embraces his older brother. He brings his siblings inside, and asks them to stay the night, to which they reluctantly agree. Later, Eli and Mary exit the house to look for something, and worry if the developers start digging, they might uncover it, which could drag them into serious trouble. Mary states that before she went to the motel earlier, she sat in the car for 20 minutes, but Eli says she went inside, and that's all that matters. The siblings hug each other, while Tommy and Josiah watch this from the window. The old man tells his son God doesn't lie, and these two twins are the reason their mother is burning in Hellfire, and we see the same childhood flashback. Next, Eli grabs a shovel from a shed, and begins digging the land in front of the house. Mary, on the other hand, tries to talk with Tommy to make him sign for the oil company. Just then, she gets a call from Ross, who states that the agency has made a decision, and Mary is going to be a mom. This makes her very happy and emotional. While outside, Eli grows frustrated as he continues to dig but doesn't find anything. That night, the siblings and their dad gather in the dining room, during which Josiah asks Tommy to tell these two about their mom. Tommy then tells his siblings that their mom is in Hellfire, and they are also going to end up there, unless they change their ways and live righteously. However, Eli says what Tommy knows about living right when he has got a letter from his ex-wife's attorney with a restraining order. It turns out that Tanner, whom Tommy saw at the beginning of the movie, is actually his son, but his ex-wife divorced him a year ago, and remarried. But Tommy has been bothering and approaching them repeatedly, so he has gotten several letters asking him to leave them alone. Then, in a shocking twist, Tommy accuses his siblings of being in a relationship, and says their mom killed herself because she saw them together. And an even more disturbing thing is the siblings even had a baby together. However, Eli argues it's not true, and claims the baby was because their father molested Mary. This makes Josiah furious, so he begins screaming and yelling, while Tommy desperately tries to calm him down. Upon seeing this, Eli suddenly asks who the hell he is talking to, and when Tommy says their dad, the siblings are left horrified. Tommy now accuses his siblings of still sinning together, and claims they were at the motel committing sins before they came home. The twins deny this, and it is at this point that Eli reveals that their dad has been dead for 23 years, implying that Tommy has been seeing either a hallucination, or Josiah's spirit. Tommy claims his dad is trying to save them, but Eli reminds him of how physically abusive Josiah was, who burned Tommy's head with an iron when he was just 4 years old. He regularly used to beat Eli with straps, and the worst abuse was endured by Mary, who was molested by their dad. When Mary got pregnant, their mom found out and killed herself, after which all 3 siblings teamed up, and killed their father. Upon hearing this, Mary starts crying, and the siblings think Tommy is crazy and needs help. Eli then tells him that even if their dad is actually speaking to him, he doesn't want to save them, and only wants revenge. He urges his brother to sign the papers, so they can get rid of this cursed place and move on with their lives. But Tommy accuses the two of killing that baby, and claims it took him a long time to find out about that. However, the twins ignore him and approach a large chest in the house, which is locked. Eli begins frantically kicking it, and eventually manages to break the lock. And then, when they open it, the two are horrified to see the remains of Josiah and the baby inside. This is what Eli had been searching for outside, but it turns out Tommy had already dug it up. Just then, Tommy rushes at them with an axe and plunges it into Eli's chest. Eli dies instantly, just as Mama Luna had predicted, while a horrified Mary runs into a room and locks the door. Inside, she hears music coming from a record player, and suddenly she sees a vision of her dead father. Tommy steps inside the room, so Mary tries to flee outside. But then, Tommy catches up and viciously stabs her multiple times until she is dead as well. Later, we see Josiah once again drinking in the house, while Tommy sits motionless at the table. Suddenly, a fire breaks out at the old tree where Mary had hung herself. The scene then cuts to a flashback at the motel, where we see that Mary and Eli had indeed made love before coming home, proving that Tommy wasn't crazy. The movie ends with flames engulfing the willow tree, and the words Eli and Mary Graham, sins paid in full, scrawled across it. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.